My girlfriend was raped while she was cheating on me. Now everyone thinks I'm the villain. Lauren wasn't some helpless victim. She didn't just end up in that room with Jake. She led him there. I held her while she cried, swore I'd protect her, but the whole time she was lying to my face. And when I finally walked away, she made sure the whole world wanted me dead. Lauren and I had been together for nearly 2 years, and for a long time I thought we were solid. She was the kind of girl who lit up a room, always the center of attention, always laughing just a little too loud. I, on the other hand, preferred quiet nights, a few close friends, and conversations that actually meant something. Somehow, despite our differences, we worked. At least that's what I used to believe. Lately, though, I'd started to feel the cracks. Lauren had always loved parties, but in the past few months, she seemed almost obsessed with them. Every weekend she was out with friends, posting pictures of neon lights, shots lined up on the bar, and groups of people I barely knew. I didn't mind her going out. I wasn't some possessive asshole, but something about it felt off. "Come with me sometime," she'd say, rolling her eyes when I hesitated. "You never want to have fun." I did have fun, just not the kind that ended in blackouts and blurry memories. And besides, I had my reasons for avoiding that world. My older brother, Mark, had fallen deep into addiction when we were kids. I saw firsthand what it did to a person, how it hollowed them out until they were nothing but a shell of who they used to be. I'd promised myself I'd never go down that road, and I wasn't about to start now. Lauren assured me she wasn't into anything serious. "Just drinks, maybe a little weed," she said. "Nothing crazy." I wanted to believe her. Then there was Jake. Jake had been Lauren's best friend since childhood, the guy who knew her better than anyone. He was smooth, charming in a way that made people, especially women, lean in just a little closer when he spoke. He had that confident, easy grin that made people trust him instantly. But there was something about him that made my skin crawl. Maybe it was the way he always found an excuse to touch Lauren, an arm around her shoulders, fingers grazing her lower back, tucking her hair behind her ear like it was something intimate, something his to do. Maybe it was the way he looked at her when he thought I wasn't watching, that smug, knowing smirk, like he was waiting for something. Or maybe it was the shit he said. "If I'd met Lauren first, she'd be mine," he'd joke, grinning at me over his drink. "Guess I was just a little too late, huh?" Lauren would laugh it off. "Jake's always been like this," she'd tell me. "He doesn't mean anything by it." But I knew better. I'd tried to talk to her about it more than once, but every time she'd wave it off, tell me I was being jealous, controlling. And maybe that's what she wanted to believe. Maybe it was easier than admitting that her best friend wasn't as innocent as she thought. Then came the party. We'd been invited to a gathering at a friend's place, one of those upscale summer rentals with a rooftop view and overpriced drinks. Lauren was excited. I, on the other hand, had work obligations that night, and honestly, even if I didn't, I wasn't sure I'd want to go. The idea of being in a packed house with a bunch of drunk strangers wasn't my idea of a good time. "I don't think you should go either," I told her, as she got ready, slipping into a tight black dress that I was sure she had picked just to turn heads. Lauren scoffed. "Ryan, it's just a party." I sighed, trying to find the right words without setting her off. "It's not the party, it's Jake. You know how he is." She rolled her eyes, brushing past me. "Jake's my friend. You're being ridiculous." That was the end of the conversation. Later that afternoon, we ran into Jake by chance, grabbing coffee at a spot near our apartment. The second he saw Lauren, his face lit up. "You're coming tonight, right?" he asked. She nodded, taking a sip of her drink. "Yeah. Ryan's got work, so I'll be going alone." A slow, deliberate smirk spread across Jake's face. "Well, damn," he said, shaking his head. "If you're going, I guess I have to go too." It wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. His voice had this teasing lilt, but there was something beneath it. Something smug, something that made my stomach twist. He glanced at me briefly, almost like he was daring me to react. I clenched my jaw, saying nothing, but as soon as we were home, I tried again. "Lauren, listen," I said, my voice firmer this time. "I don't feel good about this. I don't like the way Jake acts around you, and the idea of you being there all night with him." "Oh my God, Ryan," she groaned, throwing her hands up. "Jake is my friend. Just say it." You don't trust me. That's not... No, that's exactly what you mean. She grabbed her bag and headed toward the bedroom. I'm done with this conversation. That was it. No discussion, no compromise. She'd already made up her mind. And the worst part? I knew. I knew something bad was going to happen. I felt it in my gut, but I let her walk out the door anyway. I spent the rest of the night at my workshop, but my mind wasn't there. No matter how hard I tried to focus, my thoughts kept drifting back to Lauren, to Jake, to that damn party. I stared at my phone every few minutes, waiting for a text, a photo, anything to tell me she was okay. But my screen stayed dark. She's just having fun, I told myself. She's fine. But my gut told me otherwise. By the time I got home around 2 a.m., she still wasn't back. The apartment was silent, untouched, exactly as I had left it. My stomach twisted. I sent her a text. Me. Hey, where are you? No response. I called her, straight to voicemail. Something wasn't right. I told myself to be rational. It was a party. She was probably drunk, dancing, too busy to check her phone. But why did that thought only make me feel worse? At 3 a.m., my phone rang. I snatched it off the table so fast I almost dropped it. The name on the screen wasn't Lauren. It was Mark, one of our mutual friends. The second I picked up, I knew. His voice was shaking. Ryan, he gasped, you need to get to the hospital. Now. Everything inside me froze. What? My own voice barely sounded like mine. It's Lauren, he blurted out. She was found unconscious at the party. Someone took her to the hospital. Ryan, it's bad. You need to get here. The world tilted. My pulse roared in my ears. I didn't remember grabbing my keys. I didn't remember running out the door. All I knew was that 1 second I was in my apartment, and the next, I was speeding through empty streets, headlights cutting through the darkness, my hands shaking against the steering wheel. Lauren, Lauren, Lauren. By the time I reached the ER, my breath was ragged, my chest tight with fear. The moment I stormed inside, I spotted her. She was sitting on a hospital bed, wrapped in a thin blanket, knees pulled to her chest. Her skin was ashen, her eyes red and hollow. She was shaking so hard that even from across the room, I could see her fingers twitching. When she saw me, something inside her snapped. She let out a gasping sob and practically collapsed into my arms, clutching at my shirt like she was trying to hold herself together. Jake, she whispered, her voice so small it barely existed. He drugged me. He took me upstairs, and her whole body convulsed with silent, broken cries. I held her tighter, my entire body going numb. Number. No, no, no. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to kill someone. But all I could do was hold her, whispering, I've got you. I've got you. Even though I knew that nothing I said would ever make this okay. She told me everything, or at least what she could remember. One moment, she'd been drinking, laughing. The next, she was dizzy, her head foggy. Jake had been there. He offered to take her upstairs to lie down for a minute. The rest was a blur. She woke up half-dressed, violated, her body aching in ways it shouldn't have. I could barely breathe. I told her not to go. I should have been there. I should have stopped this. The doctors confirmed it. There were signs of sexual assault. There was a powerful sedative in her system. The police came. A report was filed. I told them everything I knew about Jake, about how he'd been obsessed with her, about the way he'd smirked at me earlier that day like he knew something I didn't. For the next 2 days, I didn't leave Lauren's side. She wouldn't sleep. She wouldn't eat. Every time she closed her eyes, she flinched like she was expecting someone to touch her again. I didn't know how to help her. The only thing I knew was that Jake was going to pay, but I wasn't prepared for what came next, because a few days later I got a call from the police. And that's when I found out that Lauren wasn't the only one. 2 other women had come forward. They'd heard about Lauren, and they recognized the pattern. Same story, same drugs, same Jake. Jake wasn't just a predator, he was a serial rapist. The revelation made me sick. My rage burned so deep I could hardly see straight. How long had he been doing this? How many more were there? I promised Lauren we would get justice, that I would be there for her through all of it. I meant it. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was that the worst part of this nightmare wasn't what had already happened. It was what I was about to find out. Lauren barely spoke after the hospital. When she wasn't curled up in bed, she was staring blankly at the wall, eyes vacant, lost in some place I couldn't reach. She jumped at sudden sounds, flinched when I touched her, clung to me like I was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. She stopped eating, stopped showering, stopped being Lauren. I did everything I could. I made her food, but she barely took a bite. I tried to get her outside, but she wouldn't leave the apartment. Nights were the worst. She'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat, reaching for me like she was drowning. I held her every time, whispering that she was safe, that I wouldn't let anything happen to her. She just buried her face in my chest and sobbed. At first, I thought it was normal. Trauma does that to people, but the longer it went on, the more something felt off. I couldn't explain it, not really, but there was a weight in my chest that wouldn't go away. A whisper in the back of my mind telling me something wasn't right. Then, a week after the party, Sam called. It was late, maybe 10 or 11 at night. I was sitting in the living room staring at the TV without really watching it, while Lauren slept in the bedroom. The phone rang, and the second I picked up, I knew something was wrong. "Ryan," Sam said, voice tight. "We need to talk." I sat up straighter. "What is it?" There was a long pause. Then, carefully, like he was stepping through a minefield, Sam said, "I think there's something you don't know." The knot in my stomach tightened. "Just say it." Another pause. Then he sighed. "A few people from the party reached out to me. I wasn't sure if I should tell you, but Ryan, it doesn't match what Lauren told you." I frowned. "What do you mean?" "People saw her with Jake that night. Before she got drugged?" My heart slammed against my ribs. "What?" "She was flirting with him. She wasn't drunk, not then. She was all over him, man. Holding his hand, leaning into him, laughing at everything he said. And then, she took him upstairs." I stopped breathing. "She led him up there. Ryan, people saw it." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the couch, knuckles turning white. "No," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "That's not—" "She told me." "I know what she told you," Sam said. "But she left out a lot." A sharp, ugly noise tore out of my throat. "You're telling me she chose to go up there with him?" "Yes." My fingers dug into my skull. My mind was screaming, but I couldn't process any of it. "I didn't want to tell you," Sam said, softer now. "Not after everything. But I couldn't just keep it from you." I hung up. For a long time, I just sat there, staring at the floor, trying to make sense of it. But nothing made sense. The girl who'd spent the past week sobbing in my arms, broken and fragile, she wouldn't do this. She wouldn't lie. Would she? I needed to hear it from her. I stood up, walked down the hall, and pushed the bedroom door open. Lauren was curled under the blankets, breathing softly, her face peaceful for the first time in days. But when I said her name, she stirred, blinking up at me. "Ryan?" Her voice was groggy, confused. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "I need you to tell me the truth." She frowned. "What?" I sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. "That night? Did you—" My throat closed up. I forced the words out. "Did you go upstairs with Jake willingly?" Her whole body tensed. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Panic. Then, just as quickly, she shook her head. "Number, I told you, he took me up there after— Lauren." My voice came out sharper than I intended. "Don't lie to me." She went rigid. "I talked to Sam," I said. "He talked to other people from the party. They saw you with Jake. You were flirting with him. You took him upstairs." Silence. Lauren's breathing quickened. Her fingers curled into the sheets. "Ryan, please, The truth, Lauren." Her face crumpled. Her chest rose and fell too fast. Tears welled in her eyes. Her lips trembled. And then, finally, she whispered, "I didn't mean to." The room tilted. "What?" My voice sounded hollow. She sobbed. "I was drunk, and I hadn't been out in so long, and I wanted a little fun." My stomach turned to ice. She had led him upstairs. She had been flirting with him. And then, after everything, after she chose to go up there with him, he still did what he did. I felt sick. Lauren reached for me, her hands trembling. "Ryan, please." I pulled away. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she sobbed. "I swear, I never wanted—" I stood up, my mind reeling. "So what were you going to do? Never tell me?" She shook her head wildly. "No, I ran a hand down my face, disgust twisting inside me. "I begged you not to go," I whispered. "I told you I didn't trust him. And you—" I let out a bitter laugh. "Jesus, Lauren. You made me feel like I was some possessive asshole for even being worried. Ryan, I held you in that hospital thinking you were completely innocent, thinking he took you against your will." I swallowed hard, shaking my head. "You let me believe that." She let out a choked sob. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. I stared at her, my chest heaving, my entire world fracturing. The girl I thought I knew, the girl I'd spent nearly 2 years loving, wasn't real. I backed toward the door. "Ryan, please," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "Don't leave me." I didn't answer. I grabbed my keys, walked out of the apartment, and didn't look back. Because if I did, I might break. And I couldn't break. Not yet. Because deep down, I knew. This wasn't over. Not even close. I stayed at Sam's for the next few days, but I barely spoke. My mind was stuck in an endless loop, replaying everything Lauren had told me, every lie I had unknowingly swallowed. I could still hear her voice trembling when she finally admitted the truth. I didn't mean for it to happen. I just wanted a little fun. I had loved her. I had held her while she cried. I had sworn to protect her, and the whole time she had been lying to me. Sam didn't push me to talk. He knew better. He just made sure I ate, made sure I slept, and when he finally spoke up, it wasn't to offer sympathy. "You need to stop torturing yourself and get answers," he said one night. I frowned at him from across the couch. "What the hell do you think I've been trying to do?" "No," he said, shaking his head. "I mean real answers, not just what Lauren feeds you. If she lied about that night, what else is she lying about?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. Because he was right. I had spent the past week drowning in grief, rage, and self-doubt, but I had never stopped to consider that this might just be the tip of the iceberg. So I started digging. I reached out to people I barely knew, Lauren's friends, acquaintances, anyone who might know something I didn't. At first, most of them were hesitant, awkwardly avoiding the topic or brushing me off. But eventually, the truth started to trickle in, piece by devastating piece. Lauren had been doing drugs for nearly a year behind my back. She didn't just drink or smoke a little weed like she had claimed. She did ecstasy, shrooms, cocaine. The same girl who had once sworn to me that she would never touch that stuff. Her girls' nights? They weren't what she had made them seem. She wasn't out with her childhood friends, sipping cocktails and dancing. She was getting high in apartments with people I had never even met. With Jake. With guys who had no idea she even had a boyfriend. And the worst part? She had been cheating on me long before that night at the party. One of her friends let it slip, hesitant, guilty. But she told me that last Christmas, Lauren had made out with Jake at another party. Lauren had told them to keep quiet. I sat there, staring at my phone, my stomach churning with pure disgust. She had been lying to me for months, looking me in the eyes, kissing me, telling me she loved me, all while she was sneaking around with him. I wanted to vomit. I wanted to destroy something. But most of all, I wanted to hear her say it. So I called her. When she picked up, her voice was small, fragile. "Ryan? I know everything." My voice came out steady, but my hands were shaking. "Don't bother lying." Silence. Then, a slow, shaky breath. "Ryan, please. Just tell me," I cut her off. "How long have you been lying to me?" She broke. Right then and there. I could hear it. The way her breath hitched, the way the tears started falling before she even spoke. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." "Bullshit," I snapped. "I love you," she whispered. I laughed bitterly. "No, you don't." She started sobbing, full body, gasping sobs. "I do. I swear I do. I couldn't live like that. Ryan, always being the good girl, always doing what I was told. My parents controlled everything I did for years, and when I finally got away, I wanted to feel free. So you lied to me? My voice was cold. For an entire year? I didn't want to lose you, she choked out. I didn't mean to hurt you. I should have felt something for her in that moment. I should have been angry, or heartbroken, or furious at how pathetic she sounded. But all I felt was empty. I'm done, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. She broke down completely. Ryan, please. I'm done, I repeated. Then, before she could say anything else, I hung up. That should have been the end of it. But Lauren wasn't done with me yet. The next morning, I woke up to hundreds of messages. At first, I thought something had happened to her. But when I opened the first notification, my stomach dropped. Lauren had posted about me. She had turned herself into the victim. Her post was long, emotional, carefully worded. She painted a picture of a cold, heartless boyfriend who abandoned her after she had been violated. She wrote about how she had been crying for help and how I had emotionally abused her after the assault, blaming her for what happened. She said I had tried to control her, isolate her, keep her from getting therapy. It was all lies. But no one cared about the truth. The internet saw a crying, broken woman, and they picked up their pitchforks. People I had never met were calling for my head. You're a fucking monster. She was raped and you abandoned her? You deserve to die. Hope you get what's coming to you. Death threats, doxing, people posting my personal information, my workplace, my address. And worst of all, my friends started to believe her. People I had known for years suddenly stopped answering my calls. Some of them messaged me, telling me how disappointed they were. My boss pulled me aside, told me the company was getting flooded with complaints. I tried to explain, tried to tell them what really happened. But it didn't matter. Lauren was a woman who had been assaulted. I was just a man who had abandoned her. No one wanted to hear my side. And just like that, my entire life fell apart. I sat in Sam's apartment staring at my phone, my hands clenched into fists. I had lost everything. My reputation, my friends, my fucking life. And Lauren? She was out there, reaping the sympathy of the world, while I was drowning in the hell she created. This wasn't just betrayal. This was war, and I wasn't about to let her win. I thought the worst had already happened. I thought finding out Lauren had lied to me for months was the final blow. But I was wrong. The real nightmare started the moment she hit post. The backlash was instant. My phone exploded with notifications, texts, missed calls, emails, messages from numbers I didn't recognize. At first, I didn't understand. Then, I saw the post. Lauren had crafted her masterpiece of manipulation, a beautifully written confession of her pain and suffering, detailing how the man she loved had abandoned her in her darkest hour. She didn't just imply that I was cruel, she outright accused me of emotional abuse, painting a picture of a cold, heartless boyfriend who shamed her for being assaulted. She claimed I had refused to let her get therapy, that I had gaslit her into believing it was her fault. She wrote about how I controlled her, isolated her, punished her for what Jake did. The world saw a broken, violated woman bearing her soul, and they ate it up. Within hours, my name was trending. Thousands of strangers flooded the comments, demanding justice for Lauren. People I had never met were calling for my head on a platter. My personal information was posted on forums. My phone number and address were leaked. I started getting death threats. You're a fucking monster. She was raped and you left her? You should be 6 feet under. I hope someone does to you what Jake did to her. It didn't stop there. Someone created fake screenshots, fabricated text messages showing me mocking Lauren's trauma, blaming her for what happened. Another post surfaced, an anonymous account claiming to be a former girlfriend, saying I had a history of emotional abuse. I knew it was bullshit, but it didn't matter. The court of public opinion had already convicted me. Friends I had known for years blocked my number without a word. My coworkers stopped talking to me. My boss called me into his office, telling me that the company was receiving too much pressure from concerned individuals. I was placed on an indefinite leave of absence, which was corporate speak for, "We're firing you but don't want the PR disaster." Then my landlord called. He had seen the posts. He told me he couldn't risk keeping me there. I had a week to move out. I was being erased. Sam was the only person who still stood by me. When I told him everything, he didn't even hesitate. She set you up, he said flatly. She's burying you alive. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, no shit. But what the hell am I supposed to do about it? He leaned forward, his expression dark. Fight back, I scoffed. Fight back? With what? Public opinion is already against me. No one's going to believe anything I say. Then we find something they can't ignore, he said. Lauren's been lying to you for months. You really think this is the first time she's done this kind of shit? That stuck with me. Because Sam was right. Lauren had built her entire persona on deception. So we started digging. At first I didn't expect much, but then Sam found Emily. Emily had been one of Lauren's close friends before they had a falling out months ago. She had stayed completely silent about the situation online, which immediately made her stand out. When Sam reached out, she was hesitant, nervous. But when we finally got her to talk, what she said made my blood run cold. Lauren had gone to that party with one goal in mind, to cheat. Not because she was drunk, not because she got carried away, but because she had planned it. Emily told us something even more disturbing. Lauren had actually recorded herself with Jake before things went south. She planned to use it against him, Emily said. I don't know why, but she talked about it before. How he was too cocky for his own good. I think she wanted something to hold over his head. But then, well, things didn't go how she expected. Jake had taken things too far, and suddenly Lauren wasn't the one in control anymore. That's when she flipped the script. She wasn't lying about the assault, Emily admitted. But everything before that, she twisted it to make herself look like a victim the whole way through. I felt like I was going to be sick. Lauren had been planning to cheat on me. She had recorded it like a game. And when things went to hell, she used it to destroy my life, just so she wouldn't have to face the consequences of her own actions. And she almost got away with it. But now, I had proof. The recording still existed. It was buried in an old group chat, but Emily helped us retrieve it. It showed exactly what happened before Jake drugged her. Lauren wasn't some unwilling victim at the start. She was laughing, grinding on him, whispering in his ear. I stared at the video, my hands clenched into fists. This is it. Sam nodded. This is how we end her. Lauren thought she had won. She thought she had burned my life to the ground, left me in the ashes while she basked in the sympathy of the world. But she made one mistake. She underestimated me. Sam and I spent the next 2 days collecting everything. We dug through old messages, group chats, deleted conversations, anything we could find that proved Lauren had set this entire thing up. And what we found? It was more than enough to destroy her. There were texts between her and Jake before the party, her asking him if he had anything strong that night. There were messages to her friends, telling them not to mention that she had gone upstairs willingly. And the final nail in the coffin, the video. The one Emily had helped us retrieve, showing Lauren laughing, grinding on Jake, whispering in his ear before things turned dark. I wasn't stupid. If I just posted it online, Lauren would spin it into something else. She'd cry that I was weaponizing her trauma, that I was violating her privacy. No, I had to do this right. So I handed it off to the people who would tear her apart for me. Sam and I sent everything to a handful of independent journalists, people who had built their careers on exposing lies. We also leaked the video, anonymously, onto a well-known forum, where the internet picked it up like gasoline to a fire. Within hours, the entire narrative flipped. People who had been defending Lauren turned on her viciously. The same ones who had called for my head were now calling for hers. She lied about everything. So she set Ryan up to ruin his life just to cover her own ass? Imagine the level of sociopathy it takes to manipulate the entire internet like this. She's done. No one's ever going to believe another word out of her mouth. Lauren tried to fight back at first. She posted a desperate, rambling message about how her words had been twisted, how she had never meant to hurt anyone. But no one was listening anymore. The tide had turned, and it was dragging her under. She lost everything. Her employer, seeing the backlash, fired her immediately. Sponsors, brands, and influencers who had once defended her distanced themselves as fast as they could. Friends she had weaponized against me abandoned her, afraid of getting caught in the fallout. She was left completely, utterly alone. I didn't hear from her directly, but Sam did. A short, pathetic text. "Please, tell Ryan I'm sorry." I never responded. I never even thought about it. She wasn't my problem anymore. But just because Lauren had fallen didn't mean I had come out unscathed. My reputation was still in tatters. My job was gone. My old friends, the ones who had turned their backs on me so quickly, never reached out, never apologized. I realized then that I didn't want them back. They had shown me who they really were, and I had no interest in pretending things could ever be normal again. So I made a decision. I packed up everything I had left and left the city behind. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I just got in my car, drove for hours, and started fresh somewhere no one knew my name. Somewhere I could finally breathe again. The last time I heard about Lauren, she was a ghost. No job, no friends, no future. The internet had chewed her up and spit her out, leaving her with nothing but the consequences of her own lies. And me? I was free. For the first time in a long time, I looked ahead instead of behind, and I never looked back.